Hi, this is Chip Holmes here with another episode of the Contemplative Christ Follower. And a lot of times when people talk about Christian contemplation or Christian mysticism, they talk about all these exciting, ecstatic experiences. And I won't deny that those experiences have happened and been recorded in history. Personally, that's not been my experience, and neither is it something I seek. But that doesn't mean I would deny the existence of those things. Today, I'm going to talk about something that probably would not draw a lot of people who are looking for kind of just a new cool fad, and that's something that within contemplation and mysticism has been called the dark night of the soul, which comes from an individual named St. John of the Cross. It's something that's been experienced by people who are seeking this contemplative way, this contemplative path. They're seeking a life with Christ that's lived inside out, from the head to the heart, where we're totally surrendered to him and we disappear. Not we, I shouldn't say that. That's a horrible phraseology. I'm relatively early in this path, so forgive me. But we become less and he becomes more. We don't disappear, but we get swallowed up in him is probably a better way to say it. Here's a good way to describe the dark night of the soul. It's a place where he is purifying our hearts. We talk often in mysticism of destroying the false self or the false ego. Scripturally, that's often called the old man or the old self. It's that part of us that was driven by our desires, by our longings, that was motivated by pride and ego, that its identification, the identification of this old man, of this false self, was in self. It was in me. My value comes from what I do. I seek after pleasures of myself. And what happens in this dark night of the soul is he comes in and he purifies our hearts. He transforms us. There's an emptying of ourselves. But in that, there is I'm going to tell you right now, I feel like I'm here right now. I'm actually sharing on this because I'm in a really challenging time. And you feel like there's a loss of purpose. What you were created for, you don't feel like you're doing it. You don't feel like you're having any impact. The other day, I thought to myself, wow, if I'm not suicidal, nobody worry, but I thought if I'd never been born, the world would be just fine without me. There's just a total loss of purpose. And the purpose that's okay because God's not dependent on us. He does use us, and certainly he's got purpose for us and plan in us. But as long as I'm trying to find the purpose within myself, I'm probably going to run into all kinds of problems. I hate this phase so much. Like right now, I'm just struggling. I feel like I'm alone. I feel like I'm on a desert island. I'm struggling with it. But I also sense purification. I sense that he's doing something. I can make no promises. There are people who talked about being in that place for years. Really hope that's not me. There are also people who've talked about being in that place for weeks or months or whatever it might be. But one feels in this place abandoned by the divine. I think of Jesus on the cross saying, my God, why have you forsaken me? I was reading in my Lectio Divina, in my morning meditation, and I was in the desert with Jesus the other day, and the word desert popped out to me in my meditation, and I thought that's what the dark night is. It's an arid place. It's a dry place. You're thirsty there. It's a place where the devil's tempting you, and you need God more than anything. I'm going to read a scripture verse, and this is going to be a very short one today. I'm going to read a scripture verse, but before I do it, I want to give you a little bit of practical advice. Going through a dark night of the soul does not mean that there aren't times where we need professional help with our mental health care and things along those lines. I personally have in my life gone to therapy. I have in my life taken some medication, nothing high dose, but I've done that just to try to kind of control my thoughts and control my anxiety. I see them as separate issues, right? I think going through the dark night of the soul is something God does spiritually. But if there are things, if we're feeling like we're completely overwhelmed, if our thoughts are going crazy, the fact that God may be doing something to purify our hearts doesn't mean that there isn't a need at times for professional care and mental health. I'm a big believer in mental health. So please know that while God can work in you, and even in that situation, God can still continue to work in you. But I would not encourage you to be one who doesn't seek professional health care, nor or one who is opposed to medication. I've known people through the years, and I really have some not so happy stories about that, when people have decided that medication was wrong, and they've just gotten into a very, very dark place. So I'm not telling you need it. You can go through a dark night of the soul and not have any challenges or issues. But if you're really, really struggling, there's no reason not to seek professional help. So let me read this scripture from Isaiah 50, verses 10 and 11. I'm reading today from the ESV. Who among you fears the Lord and obeys the voice of his servant? Let him who walks in darkness and has no light trust in the name of the Lord and rely on his God. Behold, all you who kindle a fire, who equip yourselves with burning torches, walk by the light of your fire and by the torches that you have kindled. This you have from my hand. You shall lie down in torment. Now, this is speaking of a time literally where one is walking in darkness. And when you're walking in darkness, you have two choices. You can try to get out of the darkness. You can light your own fire. You can grab your own torches and walk by the light of that fire. But what he says about these individuals is they'll lie down in torment. And the reason for that is you can't get there yourself. I actually, ironically, just realized in my journal I jotted down this morning, I felt like God kind of whispered to me, you're still struggling. You've got to learn to rest in me. Like, you can't do it on your own. You can't walk through this. And this isn't necessarily that you're going to immediately walk out of it. You may walk through the valley of the shadow of death, but you cannot go through that in your own strength. You can't kindle your own fire. You can't watch enough shows to get out of it. You can't engage in enough addictions to get out of it. You can't reach enough plateaus to get out of it. You cannot do it on your own. But rather, it says when one walks in that darkness and has no light, he is to trust in the name of the Lord. Even when you don't see anything, even when you don't feel anything, even when you don't experience anything, he is to trust in the name of the Lord and rely on his God. I love that Hebrew word for rely. It literally is to lean on God. And the other day, as I read that and looked that up and saw what that Hebrew word meant, I actually had that picture in my head that I was truly leaning on God, that I was just leaning and resting in his arms, that I didn't have it anymore, that I was too tired, I was too worn out, and I just leaned back into his loving arms. I don't, listen, I'm in the middle of this. I don't have a lot to say about it other than to say I choose to trust in God, to lean on him, to rely on him, to believe he's got my back, to believe whether I see a breakthrough, as some would say, a breakthrough tomorrow or 2 weeks from now, or when at the end of my life when I end up in his presence. You see, my relying on God is not relying on God to do what I want him to do, not relying on God to release me when I want him to release me. It's relying on God to do the work that he desires to do in my heart, to purge the me that I don't want to be there anymore and replace it where it is no longer I, but Christ living in me. If I have stated that's my desire, then I have to surrender to him and allow him to do whatever he needs to do to get me to that place. So my contemplative, Christ-following friends, when you're in the darkness, And you will be. If you're not there today, you'll be there at some point. When you're in the darkness, trust the Lord and rely on your God. God bless you. Have a great day. I'll see you soon.